When you talk about focus, everything begins with self-belief. Most people underestimate just how foundational this is. They assume belief is something soft, something motivational posters talk about, something vague. But in reality, belief is structural. It's the very architecture upon which your life and your decisions are built. If you don't believe in yourself, you don't give yourself permission to try. You don't give yourself permission to fail and learn. You don't even enter the arena. Without self-belief, every challenge looks like a wall that you're not strong enough to climb, and so you stop before you've even taken the first step. Now, belief in yourself isn't about delusion. It's not about pretending you're already great or ignoring your weaknesses. It's about recognizing that greatness is possible if you're willing to build it. It's about holding a vision of who you could become and having the patience to keep moving toward it no matter how far away it feels. That belief acts as an anchor. When external circumstances shift, when people doubt you, when your own results don't immediately show progress, belief is what steadies you. It's what keeps you from abandoning the process too early. Think about it in terms of psychology. Human brain is wired for survival. It doesn't naturally want to take risks. It looks for evidence that something is safe, that it will work, others approve. If you don't train your mind, it will constantly look outside of you for validation. And here's the problem with that. Outside world is inconsistent. One day people will cheer for you, the next they'll criticize you. 1 month your business might grow, the next it might stagnate. If your confidence is tethered to that volatility, you'll be tossed around emotionally and mentally. When you cultivate self-belief, when your confidence comes from within, you anchor yourself in something stable. Stability is what allows you to keep building when everything around you is chaotic. Philosophically, this is about sovereignty over your own life. If you don't believe in yourself, you are outsourcing your identity and your destiny to others. You're asking them for permission to succeed, and if they withhold it, you hesitate, you shrink, you stop. But once you decide to bet on yourself, you reclaim the authority to define your path. That's what separates the people who eventually win from those who stay stuck. Winners are simply unwilling to let anyone else dictate how far they can go. Of course, this isn't easy. Self-belief is forged through repetition, through proof to yourself that you can show up and do hard things. Comes from keeping promises you make to yourself. Every time you say, "I'll wake up early," and you actually do it, you're reinforcing your belief. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you're strengthening the evidence in your own mind that you can trust yourself. That's how you build confidence that is unshakable, not because it's given to you, but because you've earned it through action. Simple truth that few people accept. The world doesn't owe you belief. It doesn't owe you encouragement. At the start, most people won't see what you see. That's not their job, it's yours. And that's why focusing on yourself is so essential. You can be the one who believes when no one else does. You've already separated yourself from 90% of the population, because the majority of people will quit the moment doubt creeps in. So understand this clearly. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You don't even need proof yet. What you need is the courage to back yourself, believe in your capacity to grow into the person who can achieve the things you want. Once you build that inner foundation, everything else becomes strategy and execution. But without it, no amount of strategy will ever matter. Believe first, build second. The starting point of all victory. Discipline is the second pillar of keeping your focus on yourself until you win. It's easy to underestimate it because discipline doesn't always feel exciting. It's not glamorous. doesn't give you the immediate rush that comes with dreaming big or visualizing success. But if belief is the foundation, discipline is the scaffolding that keeps everything in place while you're building. Without it, even the strongest vision eventually collapses under the weight of distraction. We live in a world that is designed to steal your attention. Companies spend billions engineering notifications, entertainment, and advertising to keep you looking outward instead of inward. Every distraction chips away at the mental space you need to grow. And the dangerous part is that most distractions don't appear harmful. Look harmless, even enjoyable, scrolling for a few minutes, responding to every ping, checking in on what others are doing. Small leaks in attention accumulate. What you don't realize is that you're giving away the one resource you can never get back: your focus. From a psychological perspective, attention is energy. Whatever you give it to grows stronger in your life. If you're always feeding distraction, distraction grows. If you're always feeding discipline, discipline grows. The mind works like a muscle. If you keep training it to shift every few seconds, it loses the ability to concentrate deeply. If you train it to resist impulse and stay with what matters, you build the kind of focus that becomes a competitive advantage in a noisy world. Philosophically, this is about freedom. Many people think discipline is restrictive, that it limits their life. In reality, it's the opposite. Discipline frees you. Without discipline, you're a slave to impulse, constantly reacting to whatever captures your attention. But with discipline, you're in control. You choose where your energy goes. You decide what gets your time and what doesn't. That kind of sovereignty over your own attention is rare and powerful. This doesn't mean you cut out everything enjoyable. It means you draw clear boundaries. You decide what matters most and you protect it fiercely. Think of your focus as capital. You wouldn't hand out money carelessly to anyone who asked. You can't hand out your attention to anything that demands it. You invest it only where there is return. That could be your craft, your health, your relationships, your long-term vision. Every other demand on your attention has to be measured against those priorities. And here's where discipline becomes less about willpower and more about systems. Willpower is inconsistent. It rises and falls with your mood, your energy, your environment. Systems, on the other hand, are structures that guide your behavior automatically. If you set up an environment where distractions are harder to access and your priorities are easier to act on, discipline becomes less of a fight and more of a habit. That's how professionals in any field outperform amateurs. Not because they have infinite motivation, because they've structured their lives to minimize distraction and maximize focus. There's also an uncomfortable truth to accept. Distractions come in the form of people. Not everyone in your circle is aligned with your vision. Some will unintentionally pull your attention toward gossip, negativity, or comparison. Discipline sometimes requires stepping back from those influences, not out of arrogance, but out of protection for your own growth. If you let everyone else's noise dictate your focus, you're no longer living your life. You're living theirs. Real question you should be asking yourself daily is simple. Where is my attention going? And is it bringing me closer to the person I want to become? If the answer is no, that's your signal to recalibrate. Because in the end, success isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in the daily discipline of guarding your focus and putting it to work on what actually matters. If belief is the foundation and discipline is the scaffolding, the journey itself is the ground you walk on every day. And here's where many people make a mistake. Focus so heavily on the finish line that they forget the value of the road that gets them there. They think winning is about the final moment, achievement, the applause, the recognition. But the truth is, by the time you reach that moment, it's already over. The majority of your life isn't spent at the peak, it's spent climbing toward it. So if you can't embrace the climb, if you can't find meaning in the daily process, then no achievement will ever feel fulfilling. Psychologically, we're wired to chase outcomes. The brain releases dopamine not just when we get the reward, but when we anticipate it. That anticipation drives us forward. All you ever care about is the outcome. You create a moving target. You achieve one goal, you celebrate for a moment, you're already unsatisfied because the next milestone feels urgent. That cycle leads to burnout and emptiness. Antidote is to shift your relationship with the journey itself, to see every step, even the hard ones, as part of the reward. About how mastery is built, it's not the result of one breakthrough, but the accumulation of thousands of repetitions, most of which feel ordinary. An athlete doesn't just love the championship game. The great ones learn to love the drills, the early mornings, the soreness, the endless adjustments. Why? Because they know those moments are not separate from the victory. They are the victory in progress. Same applies to anything you're pursuing. If you wait until the very end to feel satisfied, you rob yourself of years of growth and meaning. Philosophically, this ties to the idea of presence. Life is not lived in some distant destination. It is lived right now, in this moment, imperfect process of becoming. The more you can shift your focus from, I'll be happy when, to, I'm growing now, the more resilient you become. Because when setbacks come, and they always do, you don't see them as failures, but as integral parts of the path. The obstacles aren't detours, are the road itself. This is also where patience enters the picture. Patience is not passive, it's an active trust in the process. Most people give up not because they can't reach the goal, but because they underestimate how long it will take. They expect a straight line, when in reality progress is uneven, full of dips and plateaus. Patience allows you to keep showing up on the days when nothing seems to be happening, when the results are invisible, but the roots of growth are still forming beneath the surface. And here's something worth reflecting on. The journey transforms you in ways the destination never could. The person who starts is not the same as the person who finishes. Every challenge reshapes you. Every failure teaches you resilience. Every small win builds confidence. Real reward of the journey isn't just the trophy or the recognition, it's who you become by walking the path. So instead of asking, how fast can I get there? A better question is, am I becoming the kind of person who deserves to get there? Because once you embrace the process, you realize the goal is not just to arrive, to evolve. Embrace the journey, because the journey is the victory unfolding in real time. One of the biggest traps people fall into on the path to winning is comparison. It's almost instinctive to measure yourself against others. How fast they're moving, how much they've achieved, how visible they are compared to you. But the truth is, the moment you make someone else your standard, you've already lost your focus. You've shifted the game from inner growth to outer validation. And the irony is, people you compare yourself to are often comparing themselves to someone else, which means everyone is chasing shadows. Psychologically, comparison is corrosive because it creates a false metric. You can't know someone else's full story. You don't see the sacrifices they've made, the failures they've hidden, or the unique circumstances that shape their path. All you see are fragments, the highlight reel, not the raw footage. If you try to measure your progress against that, you're comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's carefully curated version of success. That distortion leaves you either feeling inferior or superior, and both are distractions from the real work of self-improvement. Philosophically, this comes down to ownership of your lane. Every life is unique. Your strengths, your challenges, your opportunities, they're not replicable. When you obsess over someone else's journey, you abandon your own. You stop asking, am I better than I was yesterday? And start asking, am I better than them? That question is poison because it shifts the purpose of growth from inner development to external validation. Result, you end up chasing goals that aren't even yours. The only real competition that matters is the competition with yourself. If yesterday you procrastinated, then today you win by showing up. If last week you doubted yourself, this week you win by taking one bold step forward. That kind of incremental progress may not look flashy, but over time it compounds. Compound interest in investing, small daily improvements build into exponential results. And because the competition is with yourself, you never run out of the game. There is always a higher version of you to strive toward. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore others. You can study them, learn from them, even be inspired by them. But the key is to filter it through your own lens. You don't copy their playbook, you adapt the principles to your context. That way, their progress fuels your growth without derailing your focus. Becomes reference, not rivalry. This mindset also protects you from the emotional volatility of external success. You're always measuring yourself against others. You'll live in a constant cycle of envy when they rise and relief when they fall. That's not freedom, that's slavery to comparison. But when the only measure is your own growth, you're stable. You can genuinely celebrate others without feeling threatened because their path doesn't diminish yours. There's a deeper philosophical truth here. Life is not a race with one winner. It's not a zero-sum game. Someone else's success doesn't subtract from yours. In fact, it can expand what you believe is possible. Only race that truly matters is the one you run with yourself. The finish line is simply becoming the fullest version of who you are capable of being. Waste your energy trying to outrun someone else. Redirect it inward. Ask yourself daily, am I more disciplined, more focused, more resilient than I was yesterday? That's the scoreboard that counts. If you keep winning that game, external rewards will take care of themselves. Compete with yourself relentlessly, because in the end, only person you need to beat is the person you were yesterday. If you've believed in yourself, built discipline, embraced the journey, and focused on competing only with yourself, you'll inevitably face the next test: how you respond to pain and pressure. Because no matter how strong your mindset is, no matter how carefully you plan, life will deliver moments that break your rhythm. These are the setbacks, the failures, the rejections, the unexpected crises. And it's in those moments that most people abandon the path. Mistake difficulty as a sign they should quit, when in reality, difficulty is the very condition required for transformation. Psychologically, is feedback. It's your mind and body signaling that something is stretching you beyond comfort. Most people interpret that signal as danger and retreat. But if you study how growth works, whether in biology, business, or personal development, you'll see that pressure is not the enemy. It's the catalyst. Muscles grow stronger only when they are broken down under strain and rebuilt. Character works the same way. Without struggle, you remain fragile. It's the stress that creates resilience. Philosophically, this is about your relationship with suffering. Everyone will experience it, but not everyone will assign the same meaning to it. See pain as punishment, others as proof that they're not capable. But the people who rise, the ones who keep moving until they win, see pain as a teacher. They ask, what is this showing me? How is this shaping me into someone more capable? When you shift your perception of suffering, stops being something to escape and becomes something to use. This doesn't mean romanticizing hardship or pretending it's easy. It means understanding that pressure reveals what's inside you. Just like heat reveals the strength of steel, challenges reveal the strength of your character. And often, they expose the areas where you're not yet prepared. It's not failure that's instruction. It's a signal of where you need to grow. Critical mistake is thinking that resilience is something you're either born with or not. In reality, resilience is built the same way any skill is built, through exposure and adaptation. Each time you endure something hard and refuse to quit, you expand your capacity for the next challenge. Over time, what once felt unbearable becomes manageable. Doesn't get lighter, you get stronger. Here's where pressure also serves another function. It clarifies your priorities. When everything is easy, distractions multiply. But when you're under real pressure, when your back is against the wall, you suddenly see what actually matters and what doesn't. That kind of clarity is a gift, even though it comes wrapped in discomfort. If you zoom out, you'll notice something else. Almost every story of success, every person you admire, was forged in struggle. Pressure is universal. The only difference is how people respond. Some let it crush them, others let it carve them into something sharper. If you choose the latter, you'll discover a deeper kind of strength, the kind that doesn't depend on circumstances, but comes from within. When you encounter pain and pressure, don't just ask, "How can I escape this?" Ask, "How can this make me stronger?" That question transforms adversity from an obstacle into an ally. It shifts you from victimhood to ownership. Shift is what allows you not just to endure, but to grow. Pressure doesn't break you, it reveals you. When everything is said and done, difference between those who win and those who fall short is often not talent, not resources, not even intelligence. It's persistence. It's the ability to keep your eyes fixed on the goal long enough to see it through. Most people start strong. They believe in themselves, build discipline, they commit to the journey, they push past comparisons, and even withstand pressure for a time. But they don't stay. Along the way, fatigue sets in, the excitement fades. The gap between where they are and where they want to be feels too wide. So they stop. That's the real reason most people never win. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't keep going long enough. Psychologically, the mind craves resolution. We like things that end quickly. We want problems solved, goals achieved, gratification delivered. Meaningful success rarely works that way. Big goals, the kind that matter, stretch over years. And during those years, the results will come slower than you want. Progress will stall. Doubt will whisper. You'll question whether the effort is worth it. This is the breaking point where persistence becomes the rarest and most valuable skill. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's often boring. But staying the course when nothing seems to be happening is precisely what separates winners from dreamers. Philosophically, this is about the nature of commitment. Commitment is not conditional. It doesn't depend on mood, convenience, or immediate results. It's a promise you make to yourself that you will not stop until the mission is complete. Most people misunderstand persistence. It's about raw stubbornness, about never changing course. But in reality, persistence is a combination of flexibility and consistency. Change strategies, you may adjust tactics, but you never abandon the destination. You remain fixed on the vision, even if the path twists and bends in ways you never expected. This is why clarity of purpose is so essential. Your goals are shallow if they're rooted only in approval, money, or recognition. Then the first time it gets difficult, you'll let them go. If your goals are anchored in something deeper, something that aligns with who you truly want to be, then persistence becomes easier. You're not just chasing an outcome, you're living a commitment to yourself. And that gives you the fuel to keep moving when others would quit. It's also worth noting that persistence compounds. Every time you push through a season where most people give up, you build a kind of internal proof. You remind yourself, I can endure this. I've endured before. That accumulated proof creates confidence, not the fragile kind based on external success, but the durable kind based on self-trust. That's the kind of confidence that allows you to hold your focus until you actually win. Look at history, look at business, look at any field of excellence. You'll see the same patterns. It wasn't always the smartest or the most talented who rose to the top. It was the ones who refused to stop. They were willing to stay longer in the game, to absorb more setbacks, outlast the waves of doubt and difficulty. Persistence becomes its own kind of advantage because eventually the competition falls away. Ultimate challenge, the culmination of everything we've talked about, is this: can you hold your focus on yourself and your vision long enough to see it realized? Can you resist the temptation to quit early, declare defeat before the process has played out? If you can, discover that most goals are not impossible. They just require more patience, more persistence, more faith than people are willing to give. Winning doesn't belong to the fastest starter. It belongs to the one who refuses to stop running.